And we had a great meeting with the very high officials of Lebanon and very high officials of Israel. And we think that the president of Lebanon and the prime minister of Israel over the next couple of weeks will be coming here. They've agreed to an additional 3 weeks of, no firing, ceasefire, no more firing. Let's see. We hope that happens. It's not going to happen between them, but they do have Hezbollah to think about. And we're going to be working with Lebanon to get things straightened out in that country. I really believe it's something we can do pretty easily.
Lebanon and Israel have agreed to extend their ceasefire by another 3 weeks, following high-level talks at the White House on Thursday. President Donald Trump announced the extension after hosting Israel's ambassador and Lebanon's ambassador to the U.S. in the Oval Office for a second round of talks, which came a day after Israeli strikes killed at least 5 people, including a journalist.
They've agreed to an additional 3 weeks of, no firing, ceasefire, no more firing. Let's see. We hope that happens. It's not going to happen between them, but they do have Hezbollah to think about.
Trump also posted on social media, saying that the meeting went very well, adding the United States would work with Lebanon to help it defend itself against Hezbollah. The Iran-backed group was not part of the talks and says it has the right to resist Israeli forces. Trump also said he hopes to host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Lebanese President Joseph Aoun soon, and suggested there's a strong chance the two sides could reach a peace deal this year.
You look at Hezbollah, that's where everybody seems to be united against them. So they are both very united in that way. I think there's a very good chance of having peace.
The ceasefire was due to expire this weekend. It has reduced violence overall, though clashes and airstrikes have continued in southern Lebanon, where Israeli troops still hold a self-declared buffer zone. Israel's military has repeatedly warned Lebanese residents not to cross into the area. Lebanon has said future talks will focus on an Israeli withdrawal, the release of Lebanese detainees, and a delineation of the land border. Israel's focus is on rooting out Hezbollah rather than withdrawing its forces, which Beirut has been seeking to disarm peacefully for the past year. Lebanese authorities say nearly 2,500 people have been killed since Israel went on the offensive, following Hezbollah's March 2nd attack.
Nothing from the U.S. has told them they can't come.
Washington says it doesn't object to Iranian soccer players participating in this year's World Cup. However, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Thursday they can't bring people with them who have ties to Tehran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which the U.S. has designated as a foreign terrorist organization.
What they can't bring is a bunch of IRGC terrorists into our country.
We would not want to affect the athletes.
Paolo Zampolli, an Italian-American who is a Trump envoy for global relations, had suggested the day before that Italy should replace Iran at the World Cup. He told the Financial Times that he'd made the suggestion to Trump and FIFA President Gianni Infantino. Italian politicians and officials were quick to reject the idea, while residents of Rome on Thursday voiced skepticism.
Italy doesn't deserve it, in my opinion. That's all.
I see, but it seems absurd to me, because as far as I understand, Italy doesn't have any footballers who are up to the task. I think so, but I'm no expert.
Currently, there is no suggestion that Iran will withdraw or be banned from the tournament, which Italy missed out on after losing in a playoff for the third World Cup in a row. The tournament, co-hosted by the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, gets underway on June 11. Iran is scheduled to kick off its campaign with a match against New Zealand in Los Angeles 4 days later. Earlier this month, Tehran said its participation could be contingent on FIFA agreeing to move its group stage matches out of the U.S.
Iranian TV aired video on Thursday showing a small boat speeding through the water carrying soldiers who boarded 2 container ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran's ability to use swarms of small, fast boats in the strait could undermine suggestions U.S. forces have disabled its naval threat. And this strategy reveals the challenges of reopening one of the world's most important oil export routes. On April 13th, U.S. President Donald Trump said in a social media post that, quote, Iran's navy is laying at the bottom of the sea, completely obliterated 158 ships. But he noted, quote, what we have not hit are their small number of what they call fast attack ships, because we did not consider them much of a threat. Warning, if any of these ships come anywhere close to our blockade, they will be immediately eliminated. Maritime security specialists estimate Iran had hundreds, if not thousands, of these boats before the war, often hidden in coastal tunnels, naval bases, or among civilian vessels. Such boats might carry heavy machine guns, rocket launchers, and in some cases, anti-ship missiles. They may not fare well against U.S. naval ships, but commercial vessels are usually unarmed. A senior Iranian security official told Reuters that the fast boats now serve as the, quote, backbone of Iran's naval strategy, able to deploy rapidly as part of its, quote, asymmetrical war against the enemy.
We have a strong and fundamental decision, and it's a decision of all the leaders, of the unanimity of EU. We are very thankful. The great progress today, 90 billion support package and sanctions package, which is also a great signal. And we will work to make sure the funds are delivered as soon as possible. For us, it's important, and this will strengthen, of course, first of all, our army, Ukrainian forces, and allow us to boost production by air defense and work more to protect our energy system for the winter.
Today we also agreed on the 20th sanctions package. So in other words, the more Russia is doubling down on its war of aggression, the more Europe is doubling down on supporting Ukraine. That is important for us because we are very clear about standing by your side and by the side of the Ukrainian people. Today is a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
We heard something flying by, a shahed or something. I don't know. I heard it flying. Then there was a loud bang, and that was it.
We could save the documents and our cat. It is the most important.
Years since the world's worst nuclear disaster, and war threatens more tragedy at Chernobyl. Last year, a Russian drone strike tore into the protective arc, covering part of the nuclear plant. Denis Kamenko, Deputy Director for Technical Operations at the facility, says drones and missiles regularly fly over the exclusion zone. What we saw after the strike on February 14th, 2025 could happen again, he says, with far more severe consequences. Russia denies involvement in the attack, which Ukraine's security service said involved a Shahed drone, a weapon Ukrainian forces do not use. Workers have since patched up the hull with a large panel dwarfed by the hulking 256-metre-wide steel structure that covers damaged reactor 4. But further repairs are needed.
In some areas of the arch, carrying out repairs is extremely difficult due to very high radiation levels. So, for example, a welder or other highly qualified personnel may only be able to work there for a few minutes or perhaps a few hours.
Large parts of the Chernobyl exclusion zone have close to normal levels of radiation, but some areas, particularly around the destroyed reactor, remain highly contaminated. It's a reminder of the acute risks at the facility more than 4 years into the war. It also means Ukraine marks the 40th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster, needing to reshield the old sarcophagus covering tons of radioactive debris. Last year's drone strike sparked a weeks-long fire, damaging the membrane sealing the original steel and concrete structure that was hurriedly built over the reactor by Soviet authorities in 1986. Experts say work to repair the structure, which was meant to last 100 years when it was built in 2016, must begin within the next few years to avoid permanent damage. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development is raising funds for repairs, estimated to cost at least $585 million. Here's Bank President Odile Renaud-Basso.
There is a huge amount of radioactive material, fuel, which are underneath this new safe containment. So that's why it's so important to carry on the work before this risk of corrosion, and then we would need to start, if this happens, if corrosion happens and the containment is not effective anymore, we would need to start from scratch in a way, so in a much more expensive response.
Small area. That's the problem.
Yeah, so most of us are retired and most of us play football in our youth, and this is just a great way of spending their time in retirement. It's sociable, it keeps you fit, and it's a great way of doing things.
No shot! No shot!
The nice thing about walking football is the fact that they can come and play the game still at this age, you know, anywhere from 50 to 70 to 90 years old, you know. So that's the attraction. And then, of course, you know, we have the after celebrations, you know, the beer. And that can go on for too long, but it's good. It's good fun.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Slow, is it?
From gas price predictions to a record number of Samsung protesters, this is the week in numbers. $3 per gallon is the amount the US Energy Secretary Chris Wright thinks gas prices will stay at until next year. Gas prices have risen during the US-Israeli war on Iran, and it's created political headwinds for US President Donald Trump ahead of November midterm elections. However, Wright said he believes gas prices have peaked, and the resolution of the conflict will bring lower costs. $10 billion is what Huawei is spending to boost computing power for driving over the next 5 years. The Chinese tech giant is ramping up investment in smart driving research and development as it seeks to defend its lead position as a key supplier in China's smart EV sector. That's as Huawei's technologies are increasingly favoured by affluent Chinese customers over German-engineered alternatives. 40,000 Samsung workers protested in Seoul, according to union members and police. It marks the largest demonstration to date for Samsung. Workers rallied over compensation levels ahead of a planned strike that could hit AI chip production. They're planning a further strike for 18 days from May the 21st if their demands aren't met. Up to $25 billion is the investment Amazon said it'll make in Anthropic. That's as the AI startup committed to spending more than $100 billion over the next 10 years on Amazon's cloud technologies. The e-commerce titan will be investing $5 billion now and an additional $20 billion in the future, subject to certain commercial milestones. The deal deepens the two firms' relationship as Anthropic rushes to secure capacity to bolster its models. 31% was the figure Hyundai Motors' Q1 profits dropped by compared to last year. The South Korean automaker warned of business uncertainty due to the Middle East conflict. That's as exports to Europe and North Africa, which typically transit through the region, are being disrupted. And as an industry giant, its cautious outlook underscored the growing strains on the global supply chain facing the sector.